Today we have another slideshow that I want to show you how to create. A little bit different format, but today we'll be using Actionscript 3. So here we have a start file, and I have a bunch of files here available for you that you can copy. Okay, so you can use them as templates, just like the one that comes with Flash CS3, that the one that's in there. Well, this is one that I found elsewhere. So here we have a gallery image, if you want to call it that, or a gallery type of slideshow. It's a little different though. Rather than forwards and backwards buttons, where did I get it? I had a CD of tutorials. And there's one in the CS4 that I would like to use. It's almost identical to this, but I don't have CS4 on here, so I can't open it. So this was done in CS3, but it uses Actionscript 3. And it's the same type, same format. Correct. They both can use Actionscript 3. Does that get confusing? Because it does, no? Well, the nature of software development is to, quote, improve it. I think part of that, though, more importantly, though, for the company is to generate income. And so when they come out with new versions, they have to make revisions in order to suggest that you buy it. Oftentimes the revisions are minor, and you say, why did I just spend a couple $100 for this, for an upgrade? Some are significant. And I guess they felt it was an improvement. It makes it difficult, though, because Actionscript 1 and 2, people used for a long time, close to 10 years, and then to suddenly switch. It's like saying, this year we're speaking in English, and next year we're going to speak in French. Okay.
But you can open Actionscripts 1 and 2 in Actionscripts 3.
It won't, no, you can't combine them.
You can open them up.
You can open them up in newer versions of the software, yes. And they have, even in CS4, they've kept Actionscript 1 and 2 in there. You can use one or the other, because they know that that was a major change for everybody. So to abandon it altogether, I think for them would be premature. But I have the feeling eventually in the next couple versions, they probably will. They'll say you can't. But I'm not so sure, because there's so much stuff lingering around on the web, or the files that people have that were designed a while ago that you have archived or stored away. You still want to use them. Well, if you can't open them, if you can't revise them, then that makes them totally useless. And I think you'd find a lot of angry people. So they, having kind of thought about this out loud, I think they will keep it for a while.
So where did you get this page again? I'm sorry.
I had a CD of tutorials with Actionscript 3, because this I got like last year, that I happened upon. If you have no, you don't have it. You have it because I have it, and I can give you a copy of it. So you can come by here and get a copy, or if you can try to log on using that and go to my public folder, I can show you where it's at. Let me do that now. I can't log on to myself, but I can show you. It's in my public folder. So if we, here, let me go out of here for a minute. Go in here. Okay. When you log on to here and you find my name, you'll find there's a public folder. In the public folder, you see I have lots of previous demonstrations of Flash, how to make buttons, animated movie clips, animated gradients, all sorts of stuff that I've done in the past. Not polished files, but if you wanted to use them as a guide, they're helpful. If we look at Flash Boot Camp, though, this is the folder that you want. Just copy the whole folder.
Can you get that from us?
Huh? You have to log on to there to have access to my public folder on this computer.
42138, and then from there.
And then you should have access. It should give you a list of instructors to check into.
Yeah, K Miller's.
You want K Miller. Now, if everybody does it at once, it may shut some of you out. Usually after.
You go to the Finder.
Hit follow steps 1 through 4. And then once you're in my public folder, you can make copies of any of these files just by dragging them onto the desktop or copying them onto your flash drive. The folder that you want for this particular exercise is Flash Boot Camp, and there's a whole bunch of video tutorials on here, lots. Okay, that after I turn off the video that I'm doing, we can watch some of those, okay? Within that folder are source files, and these are the ones that you want. And you want part 4, which involves Actionscript. And what I'm talking about today is the gallery. So you want to copy this folder titled Gallery. And you have the end file, the start file, you have the SWF file, and then there's also an additional one that I'll cover next week that includes text arrays, and we'll cover that. That's okay. And then these are all of his slides, and all you have to do is if you want to use when I get done today, you'll see all you have to do is put your own images in here, rename them, change the Actionscript a little bit, and you can use the same format so that it works. Sort of makes sense? No? If it doesn't, say so. Huh? No, if it doesn't, that's okay.
You can only do it from this computer,
No, you can do it from home. That gives you access to that folder, and I said you can make copies of those files and put them on your flash drive. And you can take this entire folder. Let's go back here a minute. One more time, I want to go back. This Flash Boot Camp, when you click and drag this onto your flash drive, you have a copy of it to take wherever you want. And you can open it wherever you want. And if you it was designed in CS3, so if you have CS3, you can open it there, or you can open it in CS4. You can always go up in versions, but with many software packages, you can't go back down. And that would be the case for this. Once you convert this to 4, you can't open it up in 3 any longer. Photoshop is one of the few programs I know that it really doesn't matter what version you created it. You can open it just about any version. But with Illustrator, it's very picky. You know, if you did one years ago in version 10 and you open it in CS3 or CS4 and you save it as a CS3 or CS4 and then you go home and you try to open it in version 10, you can't do it. It's converted it. Or you can do that. You can make things backwards compatible. That's not true with all software packages. Oftentimes they will allow you to make it 1 or 2 versions backwards compatible. But you know, like Illustrator, it's been around for so long, yes you can. You can go all the way back to Illustrator 88. But you have to do that willingly. You have to be cognizant of what you're doing and say, I want to save this as, or I want to export it as an old document. And then you may lose a number of features when you do that, or it will alter your file because new features will be lost in that old version. Let me show you how to do this, copy this afterwards if you're not sure how to do that, okay? But when we go back to Flash, this will be one of the files that you'll have. This is the start file. And it's really very basic. It's a basic slideshow like we had before. It might be useful if I go ahead and I bring up our library. And I don't want our buttons library, so I'm going to close that. But I do want, you'll notice what's in here. We don't have a whole lot in here. We have a button, okay, which is for labels. we have another button here, which is the one you see here. And this button is used multiple times as an instance, copies of it on the stage. You can leave it this way. I don't recommend it, because what I think you're going to want to do is put a thumbnail version of what the end user is going to see over here. And if you make a thumbnail version, you're going to have to create a separate button for each. Each button will look different. You can make your button look any way you like. You can have them all look the same and label them at the bottom. But I think this type of slideshow works best if we do the following. Yes?
Will the script also reduce your picture to a thumbnail to fit the buttons?
No.
So you have to make
You have to make, for example, let me start by saying, okay, we're starting with the buttons. And they've created one thumbnail button for all the images that you want to load. And right now he has 6 buttons. I can go ahead and I can hold down the Option key and make another copy of this. So now I can add another instance of it. Now I can make 7 slides, 8, 9, 10, as many as I want. 100, it doesn't matter, as many as I have room for. But they all look the same, so I'm kind of hunting in the dark here. I don't know which one is going to be which. I don't know what's going to be here. So let's go ahead and make a copy of this, or duplicate this button, so we have, it's the same size, same format, but now I have a new one, and I'll put a thumbnail inside it so that it looks unique, it looks different. But it's nice to start off, so I have this organized, they're all the same size, and then I can swap out later on. I can swap whatever buttons I want. So let's go up here to our flyout window. And with this button selected, I'm going to go ahead and select duplicate. And we have thumbnail copy. And instead of copy, that's what T-nail stands for, I'll say thumbnail image. So IMAGE. And so that I can read this a little bit better, let me use an underscore here. Okay, thumbnail could be with image or thumbnail image. Okay, and we want to make sure that it's a button. So now I have a copy of it. It looks identical. Now I can go inside that button from the library, and I can, on all of the states, I can go ahead and I can add a thumbnail image of whatever image that's going to be loaded in there, right? So I can double click in here. It takes me inside there. Here I am inside the button. Let me go ahead and create a whole new layer up here. And what I want to do is I want to start by creating one in the upstate, because the upstate is, in this particular button, is the same for all of these. But I want to import an image. Okay? So to do that, I could also turn this into, it's going to look a little different, but you'll see what I'm talking about here. So what I can do here is I can go back and let's look at component assets. Let's look in here for a minute. No, they're outside. So now I have to go back out and I have to find an image that I'm going to put in here. So what I need to do is I'm going to go File, Import, and I'll just go ahead and import the stage. That's fine. And now you have to know where you put all of your images, right, that you're going to use. So I'm going to go back here to my personal folder, go back to Public, go back to Flash Boot Camp, go back to Source Files, Actionscript 4, Gallery, and here's all. Let's start with Road Trip JPEG 1. Okay, so this will be my first one, and I'll go ahead and I'll import it. It's going to be a huge honking file. It's going to be big. It's going to be way bigger than what I want. It's taken a while to import too, which is not good. This is something I didn't talk about earlier, but this is kind of nice. It appears to be part of a sequence of images because they were named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For those of you, I'm going off on a tangent right now. If you've ever worked in a 3D modeling program, for example, or you've worked with, you can, in Photoshop, you can create animated GIFs, you can do all sorts of things in different programs that create animation. You can do that with video as well, and you can export the file as still images, a series of still images. Before Flash accepted video, and it wasn't too many versions ago that you couldn't import video, you had to import a series of images. So if it detects a sequence, so that in, for example, let's say you created an animation in Lightwave, which is a 3D modeling program, and you could save that in one format, which would be a QuickTime movie, but let's say also you wanted to import that into Flash, and this is at a time before that you could bring in the QuickTime movie. So what you would have had to do is render it, but you rendered it as stills. And what it would do is it would put all those stills in a folder, and if you were creating your animation at 15 frames per second, then for every second of video you would have 15 frames, 15 images. And it would name them sequentially. You know, here's 0, 1, 0, 2, or it could be 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 3, 0, 0, in order. And they would all be stacked on top of one another. Well, Flash would detect, based on how you name those, that sequence, on that it's a number, you know, that 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, do you want to import all of them? And it would automatically put them in the timeline, and then they would be registered on top of one another. And when you played your Flash project, it would look like video. It would be really nice animation, but it would be clunky because it could take up hundreds and hundreds of frames. Okay? And by just being able to bring in a QuickTime movie, it's one file, one frame, you're done. You know, so it was really cumbersome. And it took them a long time to do that. So anyway, here's my huge, huge file here. So let's go ahead and select the transform and make it compatible with the size that I have here. Okay? Now this looks kind of clunky, so what I probably should do, since this is a horizontal image, I really need to set this up so I have a clipping, you know, that I'm using the image to clip and to only allow certain parts of it to be available so I can make a mask. Remember how we made masks? Okay. So maybe the first thing that I should do in order to enable me to use a mask is turn this into a symbol of some sort. I could make it, if I wanted animated, I could. Graphic symbol would be just fine. So with it selected, we'll go to Modify, and we'll select Convert to Symbol, and I'll turn it into a graphic symbol, and we'll call it Vegas Thumbnail. Vegas TM, okay? Now it's a symbol. Now I can go inside that symbol. I still have my graphic image, but now I can apply a mask to it. What kind of mask do I want to make? So let's move this up like so. Let's take this, let's go back to my button, and let's use this bitmap as a mask, right? So I can copy it, copied it. Let's go back into the graphic symbol, and let's add a layer, and this will be a mask layer. And on this layer, I'll go ahead and I'll paste it. Here it is. And I'm going to move this, let's lock this layer, and let's move this one underneath it so that it has perfect registration, correct? Or I can move this wherever I want. And now how do I turn this into a mask, and how do I turn this layer into become masked? Double click on the icon. I want this to be a mask. I want this one, double click, to be masked by the one up. Now how, it doesn't look like it's working, does it? How do I get it to look like it works? I have to lock all of them, don't I? And there. Now I made a thumbnail of my piece. Now I go back to the button, it's the up state, and I have a little thumbnail of my image. And this gives me a preview. It's kind of clunky. It's not, I would probably take more time to make sure that it's cropped properly so that it looks nice. But you will run into that. If you have vertical buttons and you have horizontal images that are going in there, then you're going to have to adapt and crop and to make it work. okay, so that fits that format. Or maybe you want to use square buttons, or maybe you want to create horizontal buttons. It's up to you. If all of your images are horizontal, maybe you should switch from a vertical format of a button to a horizontal. You can make them whatever shape you want. Now we can go back to our scene. And it didn't change this, did it? Because I duplicated it. But what if I want to take all of these and I want to swap it out? All I have to do is select this, and I select swap. It goes back to my button, and here's my, hold on here. There's my thumbnail image. I should say Vegas thumbnail, or whatever it shows. And I'll just go ahead and click, and I swapped it out. So now, after you create all of yours based on these existing ones, you can just swap them out, and everything is registered nicely, and they're all uniform in size. Okay.
And how will you connect that image? You know, when you
Why don't you click on this to connect it to this, to bring it in? That's the next part. Then we have to get into the Actionscript part of that. Because if I look at Actionscript now, there's nothing in here except the note from the guy. It says there's, when I click up here, it's just a little note of Colin Smith, the guy who wrote all of this, who did this for lynda.com, saying that he did it and he, quote, owns the copyright to it. I'm not sure he can, but he says he does. So it's not unique. You know, there isn't unique Actionscript in here, so I don't know how he can own the copyright to it, but he says he does. So give him credit. I don't know. No one's going to know. It's the same if you look at the Actionscript inside Adobe software for CS4. It doesn't change. So for as many images as that you're going to have in your project, you need buttons for this type of project, because these give you a preview. Then the other thing that you need that's really important is you need a movie clip. And the movie clip needs to be the size of the images that you're going to import. You might determine ahead of time, meaning start with your Flash project and say, this is the size, I want a nice big image inside my presentation. This is a good size image for showing it on the web. How big is it? It's 500 pixels wide by 332 pixels deep. So that's the size that I've assigned the movie clip. The movie clip can be any size, but for this, it needs to be a uniform size, a single size. But that size tells me now in pixels, when I go to Photoshop and I edit my images, this is how big the images need to be, because they're going to be placed in this container. When I click on this button, it's going to load the image from my not from the library in here, but the folder inside my project. It's going to load the image in here. And then when I click on another button, it will take that other image and it will load it in the container, and it will remove the other one. So it's slightly different. This is different in that all of these images, you'll notice in our library, don't exist in here. They exist outside the project itself. And it is an efficient way to work, because when the end user downloads this project, they only download this. This is minuscule in file size. The only time they need, maybe they only want to look at 2 images. So when they click on it and it loads it into the container, the movie clip container, that's the only time it needs to load that image. It only loads images when they're called upon. If you embed the images as we did Tuesday inside your library, it makes for a large file size. It's all built in, but when it's embedded in the library of that project, the file size, your SWF file, becomes significantly larger. Cindy, you had a question? We will do that with the Actionscript. When you click on the button, we need to tell it where to look and what to do with that image. Number one, it's going to recognize this is a button, that this has, button properties, and what we want to make it a loader, and what it's going, or this is actually a movie clip. It's my loader, and we're going to tell it to load that image when you click on this inside this container. And we tell it what image, we're going to tell it where the location of that image is. The safest way to do that, and again, if I go back in here and I look inside my folder here, let's go back to, what am I doing here? Public folder, Flash Bootcamp, source files, project 4, gallery. You'll notice that all of these images are located in the same folder as my gallery folder. I could put them in a separate folder, but then if you recall, I don't know how many of you used computers years ago, you had to type the path in there, and it would start with the volume that you have here, and then there's a folder within the volume, so you'd make a / and then it would have the name of that folder. If there was another folder inside that folder, there'd be a / inside that one. If the file was inside that one, it would be that. So you'd have a whole string of directions, basically, to get it to that place. It starts with the general and goes to the specific. Think of it this way. Think of an envelope and an address on an envelope, okay? At the very end of the envelope, you know, especially if you're doing international mail, you have USA, correct? If you're mailing from the United States. Then before that would be the zip code, then before that would be the state, and before that would be the city, and before that would be the street address, and then before that would be the name. Okay, so those are all separate elements. Well, that's basically what you're doing here when you establish a path. Only you start with the general first. You don't start with the specific as we do when we write it out. So it knows generally I go to the hard drive. And within the hard drive, I go to Miller's folder. Then within Miller's folder, I go to, what was it? I mean, I've already forgotten myself. We have to go back here. We go to Flash Bootcamp, because that's contained in here. Within Flash Bootcamp, we go to source files. Within source files, we go to Actionscript 4. Within Actionscript 4, we go to gallery, and then you find it. So that would be a huge path. To make it simple for yourself, so you don't have to list any long path, make sure that your files are inside the folder, the same folder that your Flash project is in. And then it knows to look directly there, in that folder, in that container. As soon as it lies outside that, you would have to put that as a path.
Are there programs, and I thought it was either, maybe it's in Fireworks, where they have this already pre-set up, pre-galleries?
You can buy them. You can buy them.
I mean, you know, in 2 seconds done. Why would you create your own?
That would be when I showed you guys the other day where you can buy templates. They would be that way. And then all you have to do is import your own images. And as I swapped my images out just a moment ago for the button, you would swap yours out.
I think using Fireworks that goes into Dreamweaver.
You know, they might. I haven't used Fireworks in a long time. And
Flash, but it must have been Fireworks.
yeah.
You just literally throw your images in there and it, boom, creates an automatic slideshow with. Is it Fireworks? Okay.
Is it Fireworks?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't used Fireworks in a long time. So,
Does it all for you?
but you could, well, but that would be the purpose of using a template like the one that I showed you the other day with the little timer and everything. You just swap out their images for your own, and you're right, you're done. In Flash, it doesn't do it as automatic. But you're right, there are other programs that are automatic. You just,
Like they'd give you at least one template to work from, but I mean, other than the one that's
they're, you know, a CS4, you're right, they're chintzy. They've eliminated all of it. And they eliminated that other one that I showed you before because that was, they used Actionscript 2 to generate it. So they are trying to move away from it. Now with some of the companies that supply templates, I haven't used them. I should go ahead and buy one and see. just, you know, see what they do. I would think that they give you a flash file.
I would have thought with you guys having, Flash, I was just gonna try to check, but there's not even fireworks on here. Seems like it would have come as part of the package, but
We did get it with CS4. With CS3, we didn't get it.
what's in fireworks is the deadly gal, it just.
Fireworks was,
It was real easy, just like there's this drop down and you hit gallery, you throw your images in there.
I don't, there's probably something, and I'm sure there's an equivalent inside, it's not in Photoshop anymore, but it's in Bridge. And you can create slideshows in Bridge. And it's the same thing. You select a folder, it selects all the images, and you create a slideshow.
And then bring it into Green.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're not really elegant, though, when you look at them. They're not visually that pleasing, I don't think. I think, this is when I would use it. You know, everything does have a purpose. You know, when would you use a built-in slideshow that you would find in Bridge? It's plain, it's generic, it works. If you have a client that you're working with and you just did your photo shoot and you want to show them all the things that you've done, the ones that you recommend, and you are communicating with them by way of email, and you want to send them a PDF file with a slideshow in it, you know, just email it to them, make it available, or throw it up on your website and have it password protected. You just create it in Bridge, select the folder, it generates it, you email that file to your client, they open it up, they look at it, it's protected, they can't take them, but they can look at them, and then they can make comments, and they can send it back to you, and then it works for that. But for your personal website, I don't think they look that nice. I would like to see the ones that are available in Fireworks. Adobe, for whatever reason, has chosen to keep Fireworks when they acquired Macromedia. When Macromedia developed Fireworks years ago, it was their answer to Photoshop. And I thought, you know, I have to know enough applications as it is. I tinkered with Fireworks. I thought it was useful, but it was just too much effort to have to learn it and stay up on it. But it became, what they did with, Fireworks, what Macromedia did is because Macromedia was focusing all of their software on the web, for the web, that it became a really useful tool for the web. And for the longest time, Photoshop had to they built in an ancillary program called ImageReady. And ImageReady was their answer to Fireworks to give you these additional features, where you could create animated buttons, you could create animated GIFs, you could create all sorts of stuff on the fly inside there, and then toggle back and forth. They have taken ImageReady out, but you can still, the animation, those features are still there. They've just moved them someplace else. And it's now, and you have to go through the maze again and find it, you know, and find your way and see where it's located. But they didn't eliminate it. They eliminated ImageReady. They did not eliminate the features. You can still create animated GIFs. You can still create rollover buttons that are animated and things like that. But they've just done it differently. It's in a different location now.
In Photoshop.
In CS4. So, you know, if I wanted to replace my own images, I would just take my gallery folder and put my own in here. And if you want to replace them with the same names so that you don't even have to change the name of the Actionscript, you could do that. You know, even though maybe it's my trip to Canada, it would be road trip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't matter. It could be any name that you assign it. Just slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, you know, and then you substitute your own. And as soon as we could remove all of these images, just totally throw them away, and bring in a whole other set of 7 images. But as long as they had the same name, and I mean exactly the same name, notice in here we have, it's like camel backing, but it's not quite. He uses a capital R, but there's no space. Remember I said between these? So, and then capital T, and then 1. So if I change this to 01, or if I decided to change this to lowercase r, the one little thing will alter it and it won't load it. So they have to be the same if you want to use the same action script. If you feel comfortable enough to go into the action script and to make these minor modifications, which I recommend that you do, at least tinker with it, then you can do that. So anyway, you start by creating your buttons, whatever shape, size you need, for as many images as you want. The next step is to decide on your layout how big you want the images to be. So you just create a movie clip. It's an empty movie clip. If I go inside this movie clip, you can see there isn't anything in here. Notice that there's little notes in here. It says, this component has no physical assets to skin. I mean, there's nothing in here. There's not a thing in here. It's empty, totally empty. So it's just an empty container into which we are going to place those images. I don't know what he did with that. There's nothing on them. Notice that I'm scrolling back and forth, and there's a message here. This component has no physical assets to the skin. There's nothing there. You know, you turn them all off, and there's nothing there. I go back to the scene. Again, there's nothing there. Some of it just says FL contains UL loader. I mean, that's all it shows you, is that's what's in there. Nothing is in there. It's a container. It's an empty bottle. It's an empty vessel. And we're going to use the action script when we click on the button to place an image inside that container. Okay. And if you wish, remember, we can change the background color. You know, I can make it any color I want, but remember, it has to be the same color for the entire project. I can come up here, and where it says gallery, and change the title of that, change the typeface, move it around. I can move these wherever I want. It's unimportant where the location is. I can reorganize this in any fashion I like. There's only really two important components here. There are the buttons and there's the movie clip container. The one other thing that I need to do with the movie clip container, as well as the buttons, is I need to name each of the instances of them so that when I apply the action script, it knows which instance it's applying the action to, as I did the other day. So you'll notice that when you click on the instance of this movie clip, it just says my_LDR, which is abbreviation for my loader. And the way you name it here, you know, name the instance, has to conform to the way that you name files for the web. You know, all those that I talked about. It doesn't start with an uppercase. There's no space between words. If you want to say myloader01 or myloader02, you can. If you wanted to take the underscore away from there and use a capital letter in between for camel backing, I could do that. Likewise, you need to name the instances of the buttons, especially if they're all the same. And you'll notice that they are named too. Notice that this one is button 1, this one is BTN2, that one's BTN3, BTN4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Or 4. Okay, because I copied it. I goofed. Now, I would run into problems. I have to remember when I made that copy from number 4 that I would have to go back in here and name this one BTN7. There you go. So that when I now go into the actions window and I apply the action script, I can go ahead and do that. Okay? So now we have our layout. It looks pretty generic. I mean, maybe you want all the buttons to be below in nice little tidy rows. You know, you can organize this any way you like. So let's go to the gallery end, and it looks the same as the gallery beginning. The only difference is that when we look at actions and we look in here, he put them on 2 layers, and we look at this one. Why he did this, I don't know. This is the action script for this. And it looks complicated, but it's not. I mean, it is and it isn't. For every button that you have, every slide, you have this different piece of action script here. This is a repeat of all of these. The only of each of these, button 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and I can add my 7 here, and that's what I'll do, is I will take this end one and I'll change it. Okay? Remember what I did here? I selected and I made a copy of it. Okay, well, let's copy this, hold down the Option key, and drag it down here. And then let's go to the Properties panel. Since it's on my mind, instead of button 4, this is going to be button 7. Okay, so now I've added a separate instance. Now let's go back to the action script. And notice that I'm not adding action script to buttons now. In action script 3, you don't. You only put action script inside the timeline or inside movie clips. The timeline of movie clips or inside the main timeline. And that's it. So, in a nutshell, this is how it works. And I'm probably not going to use the right terminology, but I will try to deconstruct this for you, and we'll add another one. And you'll notice that some of the syntax is the same as before, but we have different terms that we're using now. You'll notice that each of the buttons now have been, we've added something for them now. For example, this is up here. This really should be, let's separate these a little bit more so you can see what's going on. And I'm going to move this down too so you can see. Okay. Because this goes with this. This goes with this. These are the little curly braces. Okay. Let me remove this from here. There we go. Okay, so let's deconstruct this. We start by, actually I'm going to play the videos afterwards because he does a much better job of, and I don't think he does a particularly good job of explaining it either, so that tells you how I feel about how I'm explaining it. And I haven't seen anybody yet, or listened to anybody yet, explain it really well. So I'm going to tell you how to copy it and paste it and adapt it. So the first piece of action script pertains to the first button, and that goes in this first little, what appears to be like a paragraph. It's not. The second is really a copy of what you see here with slight modifications for button 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and we're going to do the same for 7. Do you have to write it by hand? No, you copy and paste. Why do you copy and paste? Because if you're like me, I am a horrible typist. When I got out of college a long time ago, I mean a long time ago, I tried to get just a regular kind of part-time job or job that with using secretarial skills or typing skills or something. And even though I had a degree and I had gone to graduate school, I couldn't get the job, a bunch of the jobs because I couldn't type fast enough. So, and I don't type accurately either. Thank goodness for word processors, so you can go back and make corrections. So once you have the action script correct, and this is all correct, we should probably test it to make sure. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and hit Command Return. And this is what you see. The container disappears. If you wanted to put a default image in the container, you could. So it looks like a window. It looks, however you want it, empty something, a frame. But that's the only thing that would appear. But then when I click on this, notice that it loads that image, the first one, the Las Vegas image. When I click on the second, it replaces it with the next, the next, the next, except when I click here, Nothing. I haven't added the action script for it. And that's what we're going to do. And this is a generic kind of slideshow. It's slightly different than what I showed you before. It seems to be a popular approach. It's not fancy like some of them that you've seen with the scrolling menus and that sort of thing. That gets really complicated. Really complicated to build all of that. And I recommend at this level, if you are interested in using them, then you invest the $29 to $30 and buy a template and put your own in there and then deconstruct it as we're deconstructing this. And I think you'll discover very quickly if it's your desire, if it isn't your desire to become a Flash designer, that you have another purpose in mind, meaning to create a portfolio for yourself, that you're going to want to use a template, that you're not going to want to invest all that time and energy to learn that much action script, create that much time, spend to create something as custom and as tedious as it takes to build that just for that little thing. It takes a lot of work. I'm not saying it's not worth it. It depends on what you want out of the class. And I know some of you, like you, Piper, you want to just build your slideshow for your photographs. You don't want to become a web designer. You want to build this for your personal. And so that I'm talking to you now as if it were me too, because I mean, yeah, I teach it, but when I want to present my own ideas or my own slides or something like that, I don't want to necessarily have to go through all that tedium to do it. I just want to use a template. That's adequate. And there are some very nice ones, as we discovered last week. So how does this work? Sort of. You'll notice at the beginning we have BTN1. That refers to the instance of the button that we created over there. So it pertains to that button. Then what we need to do is we add something called an add event listener. And what does that event listener do? It looks for now a mouse event, because that's what we put in here. The mouse event could be on rollover, remember, on mouse down, on click, on drag over, on drag out. Well, in this particular instance, it is the mouse event is on click. So what it's doing is it's saying we're looking for an event listener. That event happens to be a mouse event, and the mouse event is on click. Okay, when the mouse clicks, what are we doing? Now we have to create a function. So we're telling the button what do we want it to do. Okay, we want it to be a loader, or this little thing here. This is loader 1, loader 2, loader 3, loader 4. Okay, what do we want it to do? We're looking for my loader. That was what we named the instance of that movie clip. And what is it we want it to do? We want it to go to the source, which is that folder, and we want it to take roadtrip1.jpg. And you put that in quotes. And you write it exactly the way you have it named in your folder. Notice that it has capital R, capital T, no space with the 1, and the JPEG as well. If I eliminate the JPEG, it's not going to find it. And it also has to be in quotes. Notice that after the loader event, similar to what we had done before, now it tells us, now that we've defined what we want all of this to do, and we're telling it what to load, it has to be contained within these curly braces. Okay? So what if we want to create our button 7? This is what you do. You can take any one of these, and I can take, let's go ahead and take from this curly brace. Wait a minute, not that one. My mistake, sorry. I didn't do that right. We're going to take from button 6 to the end here, this last curly brace, and I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to come down here a line or two, and I'm going to paste it. Now, instead, I'm going to turn this into, I want it to apply to button 7. Okay? This is going to be loader 7. So I just put a 7 in there instead of the 6. We want this to be changed here to be loader 6, the function loader 7. My load, now I don't want it to load road trip 6 anymore. I want it to load something else. So let's go back out. Let's find the 7th image, and let's put that one in. Let's copy the name of that and paste that in there in place of that. So I'm going to go back out, go back to my folder. It's nice if your folders are a little bit closer than what I have and not have to dig down so deep to get these things. You know, hopefully they're, maybe while you're working on it, you put it on your desktop. Let's go back to Flash Boot Camp. Let's go back to source files. Let's go back to Actionscript 4. Let's go back to gallery. And now we have Road Trip 7. Now he named them conveniently. You know, that I don't know what Road Trip 7 is. Well, I did that last time. It was a duck. That was mine. So he didn't do this one. I did this one. It was to do what I'm doing for you now, to show you how to add a 7th one. Okay? Something else you might notice. Notice the gray around the image. Because some of you asked the other day, well, what if your image is vertical? What if it isn't the size of this? Well, what I did, let's go ahead and open it in Photoshop first, is that I still use the same overall format, whatever 500 pixels by whatever it was. And then I matched the background to the background of my project. Then I placed a smaller image inside that. Now if you want, if you have smaller images in there, you could add a whole block of text, you can have multiple images, you can have whatever you want. But in this particular case, I had the small image of the duck, okay? And notice the color I used. If I go ahead and I use the eyedropper tool, where's my eyedropper tool, and I click on here, it brings it in the foreground. Now let's go over here in the swatches here, and let's go ahead and add that color, swatch 1. And what I want to do is I'm going to click, actually I didn't need to add it, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. I'm going to look in the color picker here. Now if I say web safe colors only, notice that it fits in there, and it gives me the hexadecimal number. That's why from the very beginning I said when you're using flat colors that you want to be look the same on a PC as a Mac. They're only total of 216, and they are web safe. Those are the web safe colors, and they are named with these numbers, this numbering system, the hexadecimal number, a combination of numbers and/or letters, prefaced by a pound sign. And this one happens to be the 666666. So I use the same color in the background here, and if I wanted to add text or any other little features, if I wanted to put a frame around it or I wanted to do whatever to it, I could do that here. So that's what I did. Now we go back. Let's go back to our Flash file. And I'm just going to, because I use the same naming system, which isn't a bad approach, we'll go ahead and just add that 7 to that. So I made minor changes to it. And I would do the same for 8, for 9, for 10, for 11, as many as I have. And now we go back, and let's go ahead and test it. So let's go ahead and hit Command, return. And now when I click on here, it loads the rubber ducky in there. And if I go back to here, 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 here. Now watch what happens when I change the background color. And I can do that in here. I can go back here, select the background, change the background color. Remember, let's use a pink for whatever reason, okay? And let's go ahead and test it. And let's load 7 in again. Now you see that background color. It doesn't match anymore. That was part of the image. If you want to see it, maybe you like the look of that, leave it. If you don't, then you need to go back to your original image, select whatever hexadecimal number that was, change the background, and then it will appear seamless with this. But you have to change it throughout. Yes, Cindy? On Tuesday, I'm going to show you how to add use arrays and add titles dynamically. If you want, if you want to apply it to the Actionscript, then you would do it the way that I'm going to show you on Tuesday. If you want to integrate it as a part of your image, you can do that too, so that all it does is when it loads the image, you see your title in there as well, plus a description. Yeah, you would do that in Photoshop. Right. Thank you. Everybody understood that? That if you wish to integrate titles and captions into the image, you would have to do that in Photoshop. If you wish to do that dynamically in Flash and have it maybe appear down here, then on Tuesday I will show you how to create what is called an array and how to add that action script and to what we already have to build upon that so that you can, when you click on the image, it knows to select a particular piece of dynamic text that you put into the action script and put it into a container here. And what we'll do is we'll have another container.
So an array
Huh?
only applies to text.
No, an array can apply to images too. It depends when or why would you want to use an array. Some people feel it cleans it up, makes it a little bit. Some people believe it cleans up your action script a little bit, makes it a little bit more concise and a little bit tighter. I don't know. You know, it really depends. And so you could use it for images, and you can also use an array for the text. To use it for the text, though, and we haven't used dynamic text yet, but what we will do is you'll select the text tool. Instead of static text, we're going to use dynamic, and we'll probably want a single line, and then you will click and drag and pull out an area here. And then when you're done with that, it's going to be empty. When you see it like so, you know, okay, when I select this, this becomes just like the movie clip. It becomes an empty container, a container into which we can place text, and that text will be done dynamically. Again, when we click on a button, it will take the text that we put inside the action script and put it in there. Okay? Yes?
Once we do this, if we want to switch the slide number 3 with slide number 2, then we go back to those scripts to change all the orders, right? We then replace 2 with 3, go back to 3 with replace 2, right?
Right. You would have, yeah, you would have to switch. Whatever you switch, you have to be consistent. Meaning, if you replace 3 with 2 and 2 with 3. If you change the order of them, then you're going to not only change the name of the instance here, you're going to also then, change it inside your action script too. You do have to be somewhat organized, because you can see even with just 6 or 7 slides, it can get kind of confusing if you're not careful. Because you're right, what if I were to come in here and let's change this one to button 3, and let's change this one to button 2. Okay, now let's go ahead and play it again. So now when I click, whoops, what did I just do? Now if I click here, this was the one that was 3, and this is the one that was 2. So I just changed the order. But now notice in my action script, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4 anymore. It's 1, 3, 2. You know, for just a handful of these, it's probably not going to matter. But this is where you do have to be. And I'm somewhat organized, but I'm not overly organized. You know, I don't have, there are some people who have a place for everything, and everything is in its place. You know, I know that my books are here. They're not super tidy. I know that my computer is over here and stuff, and my desktop is usually a mess, and I periodically clean it up. But in general, things are pretty organized, but not overly organized. But in here, I find that I have to force myself to be overly organized.
In the Actionscript, the spaces do not matter. Like in the button 2, you have a space between the period and button 2.
It doesn't matter, no. As long as the syntax is there, as long as you have after button, oh yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's also like empty spaces, like at the end of the
Here.
event listener, like after comma there's a space before the
Okay, I'm sorry, say again. You mean here?
Yeah, yeah. Is that
You mean
typical
have a
format?
space? No, you don't have to have a space there. It is important that you have a comma, though.
Okay.
It is important that on mouse event you have a dot click. The dot is part of the syntax. This is dot syntax. That's important.
The dot click is
Mm-hmm.
the function. Is the that is the
Actually, when he defined the first one in button 1, the function loader1 is an event. And notice he just simply copied those, so that function is now defined the same as loader1. Now we have loader2. It's still, these are events. So just
Are
make copies of
backslashes
it.
in front brackets, no notes in script writing?
Forward slashes are used only for when you define volumes, and backslashes. Again, I don't know, scripting that well enough how each are used. But yes, they have a distinct function.
The entire set of symbols.
Well, for example, notice that there are times when you can use it. Notice in this particular thing, he wants to give you a comment, a single line comment, and notice that this is an actions window. Don't you think this would affect the actions? And it normally would, but it's prefaced by 2 forward slashes. 2 forward slashes indicate that in a single line, whatever is to follow that is to be a comment. It's not a part of the action. So if I were to come back here and well, let's select here. And at the very beginning, go ahead and hit a couple of lines here. And I put // forward slash, forward slash. Notice it automatically knows what I want to do, turn to gray. Say, this is a good example of Actionscript for a basic slideshow. It knows that this isn't part of the code, that it's just a comment. And you will find in some of the better free code that's available to you, or even some of the instructional code that you'll find that Adobe makes available for you, that they'll have some decent comments in there. And you'll look after each paragraph, and it will tell you what it's for and why it's there. And you'll find that a lot of programmers will do that for themselves, because you write code one day, and a month later, it's like, why did I put that there? And you'll make little notes to yourself, and that's what it is. There are books that you can buy on Actionscript, and there's also tutorials, quite lengthy, that it's a course in and of itself. Actionscript is.
Is there like a one-pager template?
No. I wish it would be like saying, what are all, how would you explain English to someone in a page? What periods and commas and colons and all those things and all the different uses that they have. It would be kind of hard.
There's like a keyboard command one-pager, like non-script frequently used symbols.
No. Well, there are in the code. It will give you a frequently used code, but then when do you use all of this? It's, just handing someone the alphabet and saying, go to it, create a novel. Well, you can do it. You can create a novel, but you have to understand, you have to have a vocabulary, understand English syntax in order to, construct a basic sentence from a sentence, a paragraph from paragraphs, multiple thoughts. So this is, again, another one. So you have at your disposal either one of these as a basic format. So you can use, for our class, either Actionscript 2 or 3, and use either one of these formats and design it any way you like. Use the same Actionscript to make it function. So we're just changing the skin of it is all we're doing. And if you look at the one in Flash 4, it is very much like this. And I would love to use the one in Actionscript 4, but I don't have Actionscript 4 on my computer, and I can't go backwards. I'm sorry. It's CS4, but Actionscript 3. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's not Actionscript 4. I hope a long time before they do that.
So if we were to add like text to that dynamic box,
Uh-huh.
it would be another function line underneath, right? Like a third line to tell it what to do and where to.
I can show you really quick what it looks like, and then we will go over it. Here it will be gallery text arrays. And when I open that up and we look at the Actionscript here, this is what it looks like. It says, in this particular case, now you're adding variables. You have a variable is nothing more than a container, and different things can go in there, given whatever you have a box of goodies, a bag of things, and depending on what is signaled, we'll call up that specific element. So you can see up here is the description array for each of these. And we have he used an array for not only the images, but an array now for the descriptions as well. And you can see in this code how he's altered it and add things slightly so that for example, here with arrays, you start. If you have 7 in your array, you start with 0. So the first one is actually 0, and that's the first in order. So it would be 0 through 6. So here is his first source in the array is 0, and you look up here. The first one that's here is road trip 1. So by simplifying it a little bit, you don't have to change the code here anymore. Really, you just have, if you want to change the photographs, you just change the name of them here. And if they're in that folder, it will call those up. If you want to change the title of it here from Hoover Dam to, wow, look at the Hoover Dam, you just type it in here and it automatically loads it in there. Does that make sense? So we'll cover that on Tuesday. We'll do that and add that element. So if you plan on integrating the titles and the captions into your photographs, that's one way of doing it. If you want them dynamic like this, but they tend to have to be a little bit more simplified, because it's going to be a generic text. It's going to be single line. Could be multiple lines. It's not going to look that elegant. And it also clutters up your code a lot too, because the more you add, what if you wanted a big caption, a block of text? You would have to have all that in your code for every image. And you could have, huge expansive text.
Template on each single frame and then type in the text.
You would, if every paragraph is different, no. Whatever is different is different. Whatever is the same, you can copy and paste. And you can notice that for each of these buttons, this is almost identical. The only thing that's changed is the number of the button, the number of the slide, the number of the array. So you're just swapping out numbers is all. And it will call it something different. But wherever you have the name of the file, wherever you have the description, you have to put whatever you plan on putting in there. That you have to put in by hand. And you can't just copy from what you've done before unless the description is the same. Okay? Okie doke.
Where can we buy this thing?
Those first 2 lines, on the second line, for example, you have to have all your titles in there, or could you make it like some sort of generic? Because the reason for my question is that you can go to public sites, right, where you can download the photograph, and you can input your own captions.
Okay.
And of course, it would be different for another person who's built into the site.
Oh, okay. That would be a totally different piece of code then.
Okay.
Now you have input text, where you allow the end user to dynamically work with the text and input what they want.
Okay, so by itself, it would be
Yeah. So that would be different, and it's all doable. You can have input text with Flash too. You can create forms and stuff. But when work with that dynamically. A lot of that is server-side stuff too, and then you have to work with databases for it to put.
Might even be a different script.
Exactly, yeah. Ex- exactly. Yep. So some of the websites that you'll see, you know, they get really complicated. It's really, really complicated when you're writing script for it. Yeah. Oh, databases, then that's another class. I mean, that's a whole other thing.
I guess like Facebook, Flickr, and all that, where there's a lot of interactivity between.
When yeah. Did everybody hear the question? When you look at websites like Flickr, or you look at Facebook, anybody have Facebook account? You know? Yeah. Okay. Where it's dynamic, where it's constantly changing and uploading. I mean, the script for that, when it's dynamic, is extremely complicated. What they use, I don't know. You know, I don't know what they use to program that. It's not done in Flash, I can tell you that. No. But it's extremely complicated. There's all kinds of stuff. There's other places you can go to where you can, oh shoot. Let me go ahead and turn off the video, and then we can talk about some other places you can go for really, some interesting things where you can read a little synopsis of articles, and you can place your comment, and then people can respond to your comment. So it's all done dynamically, and at the same time, it's generating all kinds of information about your comments, their comments, numbers, all kinds of data is being accumulated when you do that.